The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Leela Rhodes and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at NetCom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's webinar, CEH First Look by NetCom Learning, Ethical Hacking Free Course. And presenting today's topic is Sunder Singh Khari. Sunder is a computer security and digital intelligence trainer with over 8 years of consulting experience, and he has been supported and endorsed by administrators and members of various underground hacking groups and communities all over the world. He has conducted multiple training sessions on various topics related to cybersecurity, ethical hacking, forensic investigations, etc. And he also has real-time experience in solving complex cyber crime cases. Now, just please bear in mind that this is just an overview of a very robust topic, and we do offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored towards your specific requirements. So if you're interested in a further discussion about those, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at www.netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you will get free access to that recording in the next 24 hours via email. NetCom Learning helps customers build an innovative learning organization by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. And we do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. And we have 9 practice areas in which we specialize, and they encompass people, process, and technology training. And today's presentation is from the security practice area. NetCom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio for security courses, and our upcoming classes include various training on Certified Ethical Hacker, Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator, Certified Network Defender, and many more. And our private team trainings is also available, and those learning plans can be customized to the specific needs of that audience. And you can also access a variety of security marketing assets, such as the free 1-hour training and free on-demand training and blogs by clicking on the available webinar handout. And these offerings can also be found with a simple search on our website at www.netcomlearning.com. In this webinar, we will explore and learn about tactics and techniques of ethical hacking, top 10 attacks, and introduction to Steganography and OWASP, and much more. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we do get started today. To start with, you have the option to adjust the window size to your liking. You can simply hit the escape key and find the Zoom button on the top left corner of your GoToWebinar viewer. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters, so feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenter in the questions panel, and we will address them at the end of the session today. Also, to get the best out of today's session, we've included the slides, courses we've talked about, and marketing assets in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer, and you can refer to those at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And now I'm going to go ahead and pass the time over to Sunder to present. Sunder, how are you doing this morning? Or afternoon, I should say.
Hello, Leela. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm doing good. So let's start.
You should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, let me share my screen.
Awesome. I can see it great.
You see that?
Oh, now I'm seeing something else.
Okay.
It says, okay, there. That's your screen.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CEH First Look by NetCom Learning webinar. And thank you for joining us today. It's a free ethical hacking class. And we will be talking about different techniques, different tactics used by ethical hackers to secure their environment, because it's a bit practical training program, and it's a bit more offensive also, but we will be doing these things just to protect the environment, right? So you'll be learning what are the techniques ethical hackers are actually using during the session. Okay, so let me go with the next slide. So this is the agenda of the session. This is what we are going to learn in this session. So understand the tactics and techniques of ethical hacking. So we'll talk about the different tools, the different methodologies used by the ethical hackers that they are actually using to get into the systems, networks, and web applications, databases. And then we'll use these tools just to exploit web applications, databases, right? We will try to find the weaknesses in different systems, right? So gaining access by multiple exploitation techniques and leveraging weakness in web application database. This is what we are going to cover. And then we'll talk about steganography, which is actually an art of hiding information inside a doc file, a video file, an image file, an audio file. And then we'll talk about the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities also. So OWASP is an open web application security project, which is actually, these guys are releasing the top 10 vulnerabilities in every 3 to 4 years in web applications. So if you test your web application against these top 10 vulnerabilities, you can say that your web application is robust, secure, and error-free. So we'll talk about OWASP also. And top 10 attacks we will actually talk about, including databases, using SQL injection, and gaining system-level access to the network. Right, so this is the agenda. This is what we are going to cover in this session. And tactics and techniques of ethical hacking. So we'll start with the standard terms, because you must be familiar with the standard terms that we use in ethical hacking, or hackers are actually using. Those are specific to ethical hacking, right? Then what is ethical hacking? Different steps of hacking, category of hackers, and the tools those are actually used by, the most popular tools those are actually used by hackers. We'll talk about these tools also. Right, so each and everything starts with the threat. If there is no threat, there is no need for security, right? So what is threat here? It is actually the very first term that we are going to discuss. So threat is any possible danger that can actually have negative impact on your system's integrity, availability, and confidentiality, right? So these threats to computer systems, like, could be a virus, could be a worm, could be a Trojan, a backdoor, a ransomware. So these threats may have some interruption with the services, like they may interrupt our services those are running in our environment. They make change to the data that we have, the information that we have, may get unauthorized access to that data. They may create some sort of interruptions to access. The legitimate users might not be able to access the resources, the systems, and the data. And they damage the hardware also, or may damage the facilities, right? We'll talk about how they are actually doing it, and we'll talk about these threats in detail. So threat is the possible danger here, right? That may harm your systems, your network, your database, right? Vulnerability, how these guys are so successful, how they are able to actually modify your data, your sensitive information, how they are able to actually get unauthorized access because of the vulnerability, because of the loopholes that you may have in your systems, in your network, in your database, in your web applications, right? So vulnerability is what? It is actually a weakness which is not supposed to be there, okay? It could be a software flaw, logical design, or implementation error that can lead to an unexpected and undesirable event compromising the security of a system. So maybe there is a flaw in your software that you're using. Maybe the operating system is having some vulnerabilities, some weak holes actually. The applications that you are using may also have some weaknesses, some vulnerabilities, okay? Your network may also have some misconfiguration, like maybe you left your devices with the default username passwords, right? So these types of problems might be there in your environment, right? That may lead to an unexpected and undesirable event compromising the security of your systems, your network, and your data. So a vulnerability is what? It is actually a weakness in your system that is not supposed to be there. Now exploit. So how the bad guys, the adversaries, are actually gaining access to the system, gaining access to the network. So they are using some sort of exploits, right? So suppose our systems are vulnerable, our applications are vulnerable, or our network is vulnerable. So the attackers need to send some piece of code, some chunk of data, or some sequence of commands to take advantage of these vulnerabilities. So an exploit can be actually a piece of code, a chunk of data, or a sequence of commands that can be used to take advantage of a bug. So if the system is vulnerable, we'll be using an exploit to take advantage of that bug. So it is also a piece of code that the bad guys are actually using to get in. Attacks. So threat is the possible danger. Okay, threat is the possible danger. But when a threat is in action, this is actually called an attack, right? So there are different types of attacks, like physical security attacks. Like if someone is having physical access to your premises, your system, so they may actually make change to your data, may have unauthorized access to your data, may just make your applications inaccessible for the legitimate users, may shut down the services, right? So these are physical security attacks. Then software-based attack, in which the bad guys, the adversaries, the hackers can actually compromise the flow, the vulnerabilities in your software, and can actually get unauthorized access to your systems or your network. Now, social engineering based attacks are also there, in which these bad guys actually compromise the weaknesses in humans. So convincing people to reveal sensitive information or to perform the desired action is actually social engineering, right? And when nothing works, then social engineering most of the time will definitely work, because there is no path to human stupidity. Okay, so maybe we have the strongest firewall in our environment, maybe we have the strongest IDS IP systems or the endpoint solutions, but your environment still might not be secure if it is vulnerable to social engineering attacks, if your employees are not aware about the threats, right? So they must be aware about. Okay, if they are not, then the adversaries, the bad guys, can actually exploit the systems. Okay, and these employees actually. Web application based attacks also, in which the bad guys, the attackers, the adversaries compromise the web applications and get unauthorized access to the database. And if the sensitive information is being transferred over the network, then it can also be intercepted, can also be misused, and these are actually called network based attacks. So we'll talk about all these attacks. I'll give you some demonstrations also on physical security, the attacks those are related to physical security, how the hackers can actually get access to the premises. Okay, how they can actually compromise your systems if they have physical access without username password, or how they can actually crack these username passwords. We'll demonstrate it. We'll attack the softwares also. We'll compromise the operating systems by just using some sort of vulnerabilities. Okay, social engineering attacks also. We'll talk about all these attacks in detail. Oops. 0-day. Okay, so 0-day is also a kind of software vulnerability which is unknown to others and undiscovered by the software vendor. Is it possible to write a completely secure code? It seems very difficult to write a completely secure code. If you write few hundred lines of code, there is always a possibility to find the bug, the vulnerability in that code, right? And the applications, they may have thousands of, hundreds of thousands of lines of code. So in these applications, there might be lots of vulnerabilities. Okay, and suppose you are an independent researcher, you are an ethical hacker, and you are also trying to find a vulnerability in an application. Now, suppose you found it. So the application vendor doesn't know anything about that vulnerability. No one else knows about that vulnerability. Only you know about that vulnerability. So that vulnerability is actually called 0-day. And because vendor doesn't know anything about that bug, that vulnerability, so they'll not be able to release the patch for that. So we say unpatched vulnerabilities are actually called 0 days. Covering tracks. So after doing, all these, you can say if a criminal do some crimes, commit some crimes, so after doing any crime, what he tries to do? He try to cover the tracks, just delete the evidences. So hackers also, after attacking your systems, after attacking your network, they try to cover the tracks. They try to remove all the evidences that may disclose their identity. So attackers, they always try to hide their identity. And that is actually called covering tracks. Now, there are different phases involved during ethical hacking. What phases, what steps ethical hackers are actually following? So the hackers, they follow a standard methodology. And according to EC Council, these are the 5 phases that an attacker, and a hacker actually follow while he actually get unauthorized access to your systems. So there are 5 phases of hacking that each and every attacker should actually follow to successfully compromise the system. And the very first phase here is reconnaissance phase, in which the attacker, the bad guy, try to find more and more information about the target just to create the profile of the target. So in this phase, the attacker's objective is to find information. What type of information? So attacker may be looking for the email address information that can be utilized for further attack. Attacker may be looking for the IP address information. Attacker may be looking for telephone number information, mobile number that can be used for further attacks. Like email can be utilized for phishing attack. So an email can be used as an attack vector to send a malicious link to victim, and victim may click on that malicious link that may lead to full system compromise. Or an email can be used to send the malicious attachment. So if the victim download and open that attachment, may get infected with a virus or a ransomware, or may get execute malicious code on the system. So these information that attacker will be getting in this phase can be used for further attacks. And there are different ways to get this information. Like attacker can actually directly interact with the target to get this information, okay, which is called active information gathering. And attacker can get this information without interacting with the target. So by just going through the publicly available resources, an attacker can try to get the information about the target, right? So recon is the very first phase in which attacker tries to get more and more information about the target just to create a profile of the target. Now he'll be using this information for further attacks. Then the next phase of hacking is scanning phase, in which the hacker's objective is to identify alive systems. Like in recon phase, he found the IP address or the network range of the target, which is being used by the target, right? So in scanning phase, he can try to identify the alive systems in that particular IP range. Okay, suppose he found that C-class IP is being used by the target system, okay, target organization. Now in a C-class network, there are 254 computers possible. There are 254 devices you can actually connect in a C-class network. But out of 254 devices, how many devices are being used? Means how many IPs are being, maybe the target doesn't have 254 devices in their network. Okay, so how many devices are active right now? How many IPs are being used? Right, so he will try to identify a live system first of all. Then suppose he found 10 or 15 machines alive, or 10 or 15 IPs out of 254 IPs, those are being used right now. Okay, now he doesn't know what type of devices they are actually. The IP that he found alive belongs to a Windows machine, or it is a Linux system, or it is actually a mobile device, or it is the IP camera. He doesn't know. Maybe it is a printer, right? So he just got information about alive machines or the IPs those are being used. Now he will try to do what? He will try to identify what type of device it is. Hmm? So he will just identify if it is a Windows system or a Linux system or an, a printer, right? So after identifying the type of the device, he will try to identify open ports, because the only way to remotely get into the system is open port. If there is no port open, you cannot do anything remotely. An attacker cannot get into the system if there is no open port on the target machine. So the ports are like logical channels through which an attacker can enter your system. These ports are used by the services, okay, like port 80 is used by HTTP. So if the attacker found that port 80 is open, he can just enter the system using that port 80. But the service which is running on that port must be vulnerable. So what an attacker can do actually, first of all, he will try to identify open ports, and based on the open port, he can try to identify the running services also. So if he found port 21 open, it means FTP service is running. If he found port 23 is open, it means telnet service is running. Port 443 is open, it means HTTP service is running. So based on the port, he will just try to identify the running services also. But identifying running services is not the solution actually. It might not be that much helpful. Service version is also important, right? So attacker will try to identify the service version also, not only the services, service version also, because it helps. If suppose attacker found that the target is running SMB on port 445, but he doesn't know which version of SMB the target is running. Okay, so if the target is running SMB2 and attacker try to run an exploit which works on SMB version 1, the exploit will definitely fail. Okay, so he will not only try to identify the running services, but he will try to identify the service versions also. So if he knows the service version, it helps to identify, or it helps to choose the appropriate exploit for that. Okay, and he can just look for the vulnerabilities exist in that particular version of the service. That is also possible. So in scanning phase, attacker's objective is to identify the alive systems, and then he will try to identify the open ports, and then he will try to identify the running services on these ports and the service versions, and then he will try to identify the vulnerabilities exist on this systems, on these services actually, right? Because you can only exploit a vulnerability. A hacker can only exploit a vulnerability. It could be in systems or it could be in humans, right? So he will just look for the vulnerabilities. Now, after getting information about all these open ports, running services, and the vulnerabilities, what attacker can do actually, he can try to get into the system. So by just taking advantage of these bugs, these vulnerabilities, the attacker can try to get into the system. and that's actually the gaining access phase. So that's the third phase of hacking, in which attacker try to get into the system. So suppose attacker found port 23 open in scanning phase, then he can try to perform a brute force attack on port number 23, or he can try to perform a brute force attack on port number 22, which is used by SSH service, and can try to get access to this system. So in gaining access phase, attacker will try to use brute force techniques to crack the passwords and to get unauthorized access to this system. Or maybe in scanning phase, he found that the system is running a service which is vulnerable to buffer overflow attack. So he will try to get into the system by just using an exploit which can take advantage of the buffer overflow vulnerability and can get access to the system, right? So in gaining access phase, attacker will try to use brute force, password brute force techniques, or the buffer overflow exploits he can actually use to get into the system. Now suppose attacker got into the system, okay, by just cracking the password. Maybe the administrator was not using a complex password, and it was easy to crack for an attacker, and he got access to the system. But possible that the administrator changed the password next day. What is going to be happen in that case? Attacker is going to lose access, right? Attacker doesn't want to do that. Or maybe the administrator set a new password and the password is very complex, and it might take hundreds of years for an attacker to crack that password, right? So attacker doesn't want to lose access. So after getting access, attacker will try to maintain his access for future exploitation. So what he can do, suppose he was able to crack the password on the telnet service or SSH service, then he can install a keylogger on the target system. So even if the administrator change his password, the keylogger will send the password to attacker over the email, and there is no need to crack it again. So attacker can still have access to the system even if the administrator changes password. Or maybe the attacker got access to the system by performing a buffer overflow attack on the target system. But maybe possible that the administrator fixed that issue, fixed that vulnerability. Okay, and in that case, what is going to be happen? Definitely attacker is going to lose access, and attacker doesn't want to do that. So what he can do, after exploiting the buffer overflow vulnerability, he can install a backdoor on the target system. So if the administrator fixed the vulnerability, attacker will still have access to the system through his backdoor that he installed on the target machine. This is called maintaining access. So in maintaining access phase, attacker tried to maintain his access for future exploitation by installing a keylogger on the target system or a backdoor on the target system. And finally, because he executed the keylogger or the backdoor on the target system, or maybe he created a user to maintain his access so that he can use that user's credentials to get access to the system. Now these activities might be recorded in event viewer, because each and every activity is recorded in event viewer. So by just looking at these events, the administrator may be able to know that someone got into the system, and attacker doesn't want to do that actually. So in last phase of hacking, which is covering tracks, attacker will try to hide his identity by just deleting the logs. So he can just delete the logs from the event viewer to cover his tracks so that no one will be able to detect him, right? So these are the 5 phases of hacking, and each and every attacker should go through all these 5 phases of hacking to successfully compromise a system. Now let me demonstrate how the attackers are actually doing it, how they are getting information, and how they are scanning the systems, how they are gaining access, maintaining access, and covering tracks, right? So I will demonstrate it. We will be doing it practically because it's more practical training. Certified ethical hacker is more practical training actually. So 70% practical sessions, you will see in Certified Ethical Hacker, and just 30% theory, right? So it's more hands-on training program, right? You will get your hand dirty when you join the Certified Ethical Hacker training. Okay, now hackers. Let me talk about a bit the different types of hackers also, and then we'll actually go through these phases of hacking. Okay, so now if you talk about a hacker, normally what we think, we consider that hacker is a bad guy, right? But it's not true. Hacker is always not a bad guy actually. Hacker is anyone or any individual who is having excellent knowledge about computer hardware or software, right? But if someone is having knowledge, someone is having skills, he can actually use his skills for bad purposes or can use his skills for good purposes also. He can use his skills for defensive purposes. He can use his skills for offensive purposes also. So if someone who is actually very good in computers is using his skills for offensive purposes, that type of hacker is actually called black hat hacker. So black hat hackers are, offensive guys. Those are hacking into the systems to destroy, okay, to delete some data, and to actually modify the sensitive information, or to disturb the services, to hold the systems, right? So these type of hackers are actually called black hat hackers. But if someone is using his skills for good purposes, defensive purposes, those type of hackers are actually called ethical hackers or white hat hackers, right? So white hat hackers are actually good guys who are actually using his skills for defensive purposes. And this course is all about ethical hacking. So you'll be learning these skills not to, you know, hack something or to harm someone, right? You'll be learning these skills to defend yourself, because you can have a better defense if you know what different tools and techniques, what different ways attackers are actually using to get into your environment, the bad guys, the adversaries, right? So why you should actually join this training program? Because people are looking for ethical hackers. They hire ethical hackers because they know that if uh, an attacker hack into their systems, okay, if they know that a bad guy, install a ransomware in their environment, then they are going to lose money and the reputation also. It's not just about money, it's about reputation also. So it's the loss of money, it's the loss of reputation of the company, right? So better that they invest some money in security, right? They hire some ethical hackers. These hackers can actually do what? These hackers can simulate the same type of attack that the bad guys are actually doing. Okay, they can use the same tools and techniques, and if they find any problem, any vulnerability, any loopholes in your system, your network, they can actually report it to the management, right? So you can actually fix them. So before the bad guys find these bugs and exploit them, the companies can actually hire ethical hackers, and these ethical hackers can report these issues, right? So ethical hackers or white hat hacker are the good guys who are finding the bugs, who are hacking into the systems just for good purposes and with permissions, right? But there is a third category also, which is gray hat hacker. It's the combination of white and black, right? So some people, they are working independently. They are independent researchers. They are independent ethical hackers. Okay, so what they are doing actually, they are trying to get into someone's system, but not to harm them, just to identify the bugs actually, and then they can report these issues to that particular company. Suppose you are an independent researcher and you are trying to find a bug in a bank website and you found it. So you are trying to help the bank. So you can just report this issue to bank that you have this type of problem and you should fix it. So the bank may appreciate your work, right? So sometimes the gray hat hackers, they are paid also, right? They may ask for money also, okay, to do the job, right, that they have done. Now ethical hacking is simulation of these attacks, simulation of attack. So whatever these bad guys are actually doing, these black hat hackers are actually doing, simulating that attack, simulating these methodologies is actually called ethical hacking, right? Now these are the tools. So ethical hacking tools, what tools and techniques the ethical hackers are actually using. So these are the tools that most of the hackers are actually using. So nmap we have, which is actually the king of scanner. So nmap is actually used to identify open ports. As I've discussed in second phase, we will try to identify the open ports, running services, and the vulnerabilities exist. Okay, so some sort of vulnerabilities also nmap can actually identify, although it's not a full-fledged vulnerability scanner, but it can be used to identify the very most common vulnerabilities actually, right? So nmap is what? Nmap is a port scanning tool that can be used to identify the open ports, that can be used to identify the services and the service versions. Okay, then we have hashcat, which is actually used for password cracking. So the passwords are stored in the form of hashes. Why? Because someone may get into your system and if the passwords are stored in the form of plain text, then it is possible that the bad guy can actually have access to your passwords, also system passwords. That's why most of the systems, they store passwords in hash format, right? So hash is actually a one-way function that cannot be reversed, right? So if someone found your password hashes, he will not be able to get your password if the password is complex enough. Although there are ways the hackers are actually using to crack these password hashes, but if the password is complex enough and if you are using a strong algorithm to generate the hashing, so it will be very difficult for an attacker to crack that. So hashcat is the tool that attackers can actually use to check if the password is crackable or not, right? So for password cracking we can use hashcat. John the Ripper is also similar. It is also a very popular tool for password cracking. And Metasploit is one of the most widely used tool for exploitation. So after finding the vulnerability, what we will do, we will try to exploit it as a hacker, right? So we use an exploitation tool, and Metasploit is the most widely used exploitation tool. Bubsuite is also a tool which is used especially for web application penetration testing, okay, or web application hacking. So Bubsuite can be used to identify the bugs in web apps and especially used for web app testing, like SQL injection. So some tools are there that can be used to perform SQL injection, like SQL map is there, Havis is there. So these are the tools that we actually use for uh, you know performing SQL injection attack. Wireshark is one of the most widely used tool for packet analysis. So you can capture the packets, you can analyze the traffic with the help of Wireshark. So Wireshark can be used to sniff the traffic. So if an attacker is using Wireshark, he can actually see what traffic is being sent from victim computer to the internet, or from internet to victim machine, or from one machine to another machine. They can analyze the traffic, and if it is not protected properly, like if it is not encrypted, so they can actually see what the victim is sending to internet, like maybe there are sensitive credentials, so he can actually see these credentials. Aircrack is the tool that we actually use for wireless cracking. So hackers use Aircrack to crack the Wi-Fi networks. For WPA, WPA2, or WEP cracking, we use Aircrack. Okay, so this is the most widely used tool for wireless hacking. So these are the tools. Those are actually used during the ethical hacking. And these are not only the tools, guys. There are tons of tools that you will find in ethical hacking course. So EC Council is not only using these tools. There are, uh, hundreds of tools that you will find in this certified ethical hacker training program. Although it's not possible to use all these tools during the training, but like they have provided the tools DVD when you actually enroll for the course, and you can try different tools to hack into the systems, right? So they have hundreds of tools. Those are freely available during the training program. So let me now talk about these phases, so different steps of hacking, right? So very first step we start, right? Recon, so information gathering. This is actually the very first phase of hacking, in which attacker try to get information about the target, right? Okay, so now there are two ways to get information, as I told you. There are two ways to get information. You can directly interact with the target to get information about it, or without interacting with the target, you can try to get information. Like if you talk about active recon or active footprinting or information gathering, you can actually call to the help desk support, or you can visit the company premises to get information about it. Okay, or if you talk about the passive, so you can actually go through the internet, means publicly available resources you can go through and can try to get information. So let me talk about how the bad guys can actually go through the publicly available resources to get information about the target, right? So the most popular source of information is Google, right? So whenever we look for uh, information, or we are just trying to find something on the web, we actually use the search engine. So Google is very powerful search engine. You can find anything on the web with the help of Google, right? Most of them are available through Google. So I just browse google.com, and here, like if I look for cat, for instance, now you see how many results Google is throwing back. These number of results, right, in just this much of time. So Google is very powerful, right? This can give you this number of results. It has lots of information, but is it that useful actually? Because it's tons of information, right? How can I actually refine it? Like suppose I'm looking for a cat with blue eyes. Is it possible to find with Google? Yes, it's possible. If I'm looking for a cat with the brown fur, is it possible? Yes, it's possible to find, right? So Google gives you an option. It uses some operators that you can actually use to find specific type of information that you are looking for actually, right? So for instance, you are a system administrator and you have to memorize lots of passwords. Like I remember when I was working for an organization, so there was a ransomware attack, and the HR system got infected with the ransomware attack. Okay, and they sent the system to me to try to decrypt the data, because all the document files got encrypted. PPTs, Word files, Excel files, they all got encrypted. And the guy was actually asking for ransom. Now, I saw that, there was the credentials stored on the victim's desktop in the text file, right? So people are doing it actually. They are very lazy to remember the credentials. So suppose you are an administrator and you have to memorize your domain administrator password. You have to remember your local administrator password also. Maybe you have some sort of subscriptions and you have to memorize all these passwords. Is it possible? No, it's very difficult actually. Normally people do not memorize all these passwords. So what they do actually, they store it somewhere. So they store in a text file, and the most common format is Excel, right? So they can use Excel files also to store, right? So they may create multiple columns in Excel, right? They may create multiple columns, and in one column they may have you know, the usernames. Okay, they can name that column as username column, and the other column may have passwords, right? The associated passwords. So, and suppose the administrator save that file somewhere on the web. Okay, so Google is very powerful. It not only knows that what type of file it is, it also knows what is inside that file, right? So suppose you are looking for Excel files, so you can just use file type operator. So file type operator is actually used to find a specific type of file, right? Suppose I'm looking for Excel files. Now there is a colon after each and every operator here. Now what type of file you're looking for? I'm looking for XLS. Excel files. So file type colon XLS. Now what you're looking for inside that file. So I don't know what your username is. I don't know what your password is, but I know if an Excel file is having username keyword or the password keyword, most probably someone is using that file to store the credentials, right? So the bad guys can use the power of Google to find sensitive information, the credentials that someone might store on the web and might not have enough authentication to access that file, right? So they can actually use these dork. It is actually called the Google dork. So yeah, so by just typing this dork, like file type XLS and then username pipe password, what I'm instructing Google, I'm instructing Google that find all Excel files on the web. Those are actually having either username keyword or the password keyword in it, right? And if I run this search, then Google will find the files you see. These all are Excel files, XLS, XLS, XLS. So these all are Excel files actually. And they must have the credentials because I'm looking for the username and password keyword inside these files. So most probably these files may have the credentials. Okay, so this is how, if your uh, you know, credential file you are actually storing somewhere on the web and you do not have, you know, enough authentication, then someone can actually use these dork to access your sensitive file. So an ethical hacker can actually help the organizations to find these type of files or these type of problems, these type of vulnerabilities. If someone in a company is storing the sensitive file on the web and it's publicly available, accessible to anyone, then they may actually look for these type of files, right? So here, if you open one of the file, you will see the credentials there, right? So this is what the ethical hackers, hackers are actually doing. And the same techniques we can also use to find the files those are related or, you know, just you know, belongs to a specific company, okay, who hired us for hacking into their environment. Okay, so file type operator we can actually use. There are other type of operators also that you can actually use in Google, like we can use in URL operator. So in URL operator can be actually used to find a specific keyword in the URL of the website, like in URL, and then I look for admin login, for instance. So when a developer design the page, I know that they use these common keywords to actually look for the login page, sorry, to design the login pages, right? So I can instruct Google that find all the websites those are having this keyword, admin login keyword, or login.asp or admin.asp or admin login.php. So these type of keywords I can actually use in the URL of the website. So if I run this, you'll see that all of these websites are actually having admin login.asp keyword in their URL, and all of them might be the login pages, like here, this one, if I open, right? So it is a login page, it is also a login page. So these keywords, these dork actually can be used by the bad guys to find the login pages, so that they can try to perform a brute force attack on this login page, or they can try to perform a SQL injection attack on these pages, right? So these dork can be used to find the login pages. So we are getting help from Google and trying to find the sensitive information. So these pages, if they are available through Google, so it is actually a problem. A script kiddie, okay, the guys who are not technically very sound, they are just searching on YouTube how to hack this, how to hack that, and they are able to get into your website. Okay, why? Because you do not have enough protection, right? You may not have an entry in robot.txt, right? So robot.txt is actually the file that a developer or you actually can put in the root of the website, so that you can instruct Google that do not index a specific page. Like this administration portal is just for admin purposes, so it should be used only for admin purposes, right? So it should not be available publicly. So these guys can also have a robots.txt file to hide it from the Google. So Google will do what, or any search engine will first look at the robots.txt file. If it is there, and you are disallowing something, you are hiding something, so Google will not index that particular page. Okay, so you can hide it actually. So these are the techniques, like this is what an ethical hacker can actually do. Or suppose you are actually having some sort of security cameras in your organization, so a bad guy can find these security cameras, eh? So by just using some dork like view.shtml, someone can actually use to find the live camera. So here you see all of these websites are actually having view.shtml in their URL, and if you open them, then they might be the cameras, the live cameras, and they might not have enough protection on these cameras, right? So some of them might not have even the username password, some might have the default username password. So if you are actually trying to identify these type of open webcams, if there is no open webcam in your organization, then you can actually hire an ethical hacker, and the ethical hacker can actually check if the camera that belongs to your company is visible in Google search or not, and they can report this issue so that you can hide it from the public view, right? So these type of dork can be used, but sometimes you might not have idea what dork you should actually use. You don't know what is view.html, okay, you don't know what is in URL and what is admin login.asp. So in that case, you can actually go to GHDB, which is actually Google hacking database. If you go here, you can find that people are posting the dorks here, huh? So if someone find, like here, it is recently posted, so in URL HP device web access, so this dork can be used to find the various online devices, and this is the author who discovered it, and it was also recently posted, right? And this is netbeater, in-text based netbeater. So what this dork will do, it will find the pages those contain the login portal, right? Even they have filters also here, so you can use some sort of filters to look for a specific type of information. Suppose I'm looking for the files containing passwords. So here it will show you only the dorks that can be used to find the files that contain passwords. Like we use file type XLS and the username password keyword we were looking for inside the text file. Similarly here also, you can see recently someone posted that you can use site operator and pastebin.com entail then password 2021, right? So if you open it, then you will see that this dork will find the files that contain password, and he's actually the author of that. And this one will look for WP content, uploads and data.txt file, okay, in the URL of the website. And that text file may have some credentials. Those are related to the WordPress websites where this data.txt file is being hosted, right? So like you can go to GHDB and can actually find. So the information is publicly available. It's too easy for the bad guys to look for the sensitive information, right? These type of tools, these type of websites like exploitDB, they made their job easy. But actually, these are not only being used by the bad guys. These websites can also be used by the good guys. Like if you are an ethical hacker, you can also use the same techniques. You can also go through the same websites to find the sensitive information about the company who hired you, and you can actually report these issues that the sensitive information is publicly available, so they can actually hide it from the public view. And that's the benefit of using the same techniques that bad guys, the black hat hackers are actually using, the crackers actually, right? So hacker is a good guy, but cracker is the bad guy. Okay, so this is a Google hacking database. Someone can actually go through and can find the dork here. Now, what else? Suppose you are looking for a company. You just know the company name. You do not know anything about that company, right? So what you can do, you can simply go through Google and can find the name of that company. If you just type the name of the company, you can easily get information about the domain name of that company. It's easy. Like if I just look for NetCom here, NetCom Learning. So you see, it gives you information that this is an IT training company, and we see the URL also here, like netcomlearning.com. So www.netcomlearning.com is the website that belongs to NetCom Learning. And if we remove www, just netcomlearning.com is actually called the domain name. So there are two parts here, www and NetCom Learning. So let me open MS Paint here. And let me move this window. Right. So if you talk about www, suppose www.certified hacker here. Let me increase the font also if it's not visible properly. 18 is fine, I think. So www.company name, it could be like certified hacker.com. Okay, so suppose you look for certified hacker or certified ethical hacker.com, then you will see the website easily, www.certifiedethicalhacker.com. Now there are two parts here. This part is actually called host name. So www is the host name and certified ethical hacker is the domain name, right? And the full name is called fully qualified domain name, right? This host name plus domain name, right? So it is called fully qualified domain name. Now, if you remove www here, and if you just copy the domain, then using this domain, you can try to find the sensitive information. Like you can just go through whois.com and you can look for this domain, whois database. So we go through whois database, certifiedhacker.com, and we get information about it, right? So this is the domain, certifiedhacker.com. This is the registrar address, and it was registered on this date. It is going to expire on this date. It was updated on this date. And these are the name servers. means the DNS servers, those are actually responsible for resolving all the names for certifiedhacker.com. And this is the registrant information. And you see, we got information about the geolocation that can be used for further attacks, like someone can actually visit the company premises physically if they have idea about the geolocation. And got information about the phone number also that can be used for phishing attack, right? So over the call can try to reveal sensitive information using social engineering attack. And got information about email address also here. So although they are actually hiding this information, its email address not clearly mentioned here, but yeah, some organizations, if they are not aware about the security or not aware about the threats, they may actually use the sensitive emails in whois database. So whois database can be used to gather information about sensitive emails or sensitive phone number. Like if you go with certifiedethicalhacker.com, which is another domain actually, certified ethical hacker. So you got information like here, this is the phone number, the fax number, and you see the certified ethicalhacker.com at domain proxy here, right? So this is the email address. So someone can use this email address for phishing attack. This information can be used for further attacks actually, because email can be used as an attack vector. Okay, to send a malicious link, also to send a malicious PDF, someone can use that. Or if you get information about the email, for instance, suppose you go through the whois database and you find an email. Now by just looking at this email, you can try to identify the pattern that they are using, the format that they are using for the emails. Like sometimes the companies, they use the first name and the last name at domainname.com. So if you know someone who works for that particular company, you can try to guess his or her email address, right? So maybe the first name dot last name at domain name, right? So this could be the email. You can try to guess it. Or maybe if the format look like the first name dot the first letter of the last name at the rate domain, then you can actually try to guess. So if you know the pattern that they are actually using, you can try to guess an email address for other employees also. Those are not disclosing. Or if you know the company's CEO name, that is not very difficult to get actually. You can guess his email address by just looking at the format that is being used. Okay, so this information can be useful for that purpose also. Or maybe possible that this email got compromised somewhere, and maybe it is in the database actually. Okay, the hacking database. So you can actually try to look at this email, like no, this one actually. Let me just add admin here, because sometimes people, they use admin at domain name. These emails might exist, and most of the time these email exist, like admin at google.com. Okay, admin at some company like that. Okay, so admin there, or like maybe you are using info at and the company name. So these emails exist most of the time, right? So what we can do actually, we can try to check if the email got compromised somewhere. So have I been found? This is the website where actually you can actually go and can check if the email got compromised in some data breaches. So you can look for, like if I look for admin at domainproxy.com, and let's see if it is there. Yeah, it's available in one database found and no page. So in 2019 February, the email address validation service verification.io suffered with the database discovered by Vinny Theory. Okay, breach due to being blah blah, and there are 763 billion unique email addresses being actually exposed. So it's possible that the email is in that data breach. So if it is recent, or maybe someone has access to this breach, the database can find the email address, or maybe the not just the email address, maybe the passwords also there in that data breach, right? So someone can look for the email and the password on this website. So this information further can be utilized to perform, you know, this thing, social ending attacks, or email can also be utilized, and mobile number can be utilized for phishing attacks. You can call someone, right? So this is one of the source where you can actually go and can get information. There is one more actually website which gives you information about DNS domains also, DNS names also. So which is who.is actually. So who.is will also give you information about the whois database, but the thing is it shows you the DNS server resource records as well. That's the benefit actually, that's the difference. So it's going now. Okay, so you get information that these are the same information you get here, registrant contact, administrative contact here, but here you get DNS resource record information also, right? So you see SOA, startup authority, is the domain for which the DNS server is responsible. You see a resource record, right? So you see the IP address that belongs to this certifiedethicalhacker.com, and you see another a resource record. So there are different types of resource records in DNS, like we have MX, which is mail exchanger resource record. So if we want to get information about the mail exchanger resource record, we want to know who is the mail server for a particular domain. Like if I want to know what is the mail server for google.com, although everyone knows about it's mail.google.com, but this information is stored in the form of MX resource record, right? So if you look for Google and if you go through DNS resource records, you will see here, these are the resource records that belongs to Google server. So we see MX. So MX belongs to mail exchanger, mail server actually. So it is used to identify the mail server. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mail servers, okay, for google.com. And AA here, it actually used to identify or used to map the name to IPv6 address. So you see this is the IPv6 address for Google, and a resource record is actually used to map the domain name or the name to IPv4 address, and we see the IPv4 address. These are the name servers because name server information is stored in the form of NS resource record. So these are the name servers for google.com, and again www.google.com IP and www.google.com's IPv6 address here, right? So you see www.google.com and google.com IP, they are different. It is different, and this one is different, right? So this is what we can actually do. We just know the name, company name, we just Google it, and we found the domain name of that company, and then by just looking at the whois database, we got more information. Now we know what is the mail server for the target, what is the DNS server for the target, okay? And if you suppose use some tools, like some tools can be used to enumerate more information, like they can be used to transfer the zone from the DNS server. So if the DNS server is vulnerable to zone transfer, so you can actually transfer all the zones information, like all the resource records from the DNS server to your system. So each and every device must be registered in DNS. If you have your organization, then in that organization, each and every device, like the printer, the DNS, the mail server, the web server, okay, or all the services that you run in your organization, each and every service must be registered in DNS. So if someone is able to enumerate the DNS database, he can actually get information about your internal systems also. Maybe those systems are not available publicly, but he can get information about the internal services that you're running in your environment. So this information should not be publicly available. And as an ethical hacker, you can actually look for this information. If there is a sensitive information publicly available, then you can actually report this issue, that this information should be protected, right? It should not be publicly available, right? And that's the job of ethical hacker, right? So DNS resource records, we talk about. So we got information about DNS server, resource records, we got information about the email address, we got information about the telephone number that can be used for phishing attack, email can be used for phishing attack, and we got information about geolocation that can be used by a bad guy to get access to the premises, okay? And what else a bad guy can actually gather? So suppose a bad guy wants to know the operating system running by the victim or the web server running by the victim, so he can actually go through the public level resources. So netcraft is the website where you can actually go and can get information about uh, the operating system and the web server, because getting information about the web server might help, okay? So if a hacker, a bad guy knows that you are actually using Apache server, then he can actually choose an exploit that works on Apache, right? If he knows that you are using IS server as a web server, then he can actually pick an exploits that works on IS server, or he can just try to look for the vulnerabilities those are available for that particular version of IS server, right? So here also it's passive. Why? Because you are not interacting with the target. Without interacting with the target, you are trying to get information about it, okay? So he can do what? He can just go through this website and can type the website address here, okay? And these netcraft will show the operating system used by the target and the web server used by the target. So if I just look for https and www.google.com, so I click on go option, accept the cookies, right? So here you see the site title is Google, date first seen in May 2002, and this is netcraft ranking here, and the primary language, and this is the site. NetBlock owner is Google itself, and the hosting company Google. Hosting country is United States, and this is the IP address which is being used, IPv4 address, and this is the autonomous system number also, the AS number, right, which is specific to a particular network. And more information like geolocation, they give you information about that. And here you see the certificate information, if the certificate is valid or not, which algorithm is being used, like TLS 1.3, which is the latest version of TLS, and the length is 256 bit long. Certificate check is okay, right? And you see the issuer company who issued the certificate, right? Issuer state not available. And here we see the operating system and the web server also. So Google, definitely they are hiding their operating system. It says unknown, but they have GWS, Google Web Server. So Google uses its own customized web server, which is DWS, and they are running the customized operating system also, which is Linux-based operating system, right? So it says unknown OS, but they are using Linux here. So by just looking at the Google Web Server, so suppose we found the web server, we can easily guess the operating system. So if the web server is IS, most probably the operating system is Windows. If the web server is Apache, most probably the operating system is Linux, because Apache is used by Linux and IS is used by Windows. And by looking at the version also, if it is IS 6, then 2003, maybe IS 7, 2008 server, like that. So we can guess the operating system as well, right, by just looking at the web server. So still we are passive, because we are sending requests to netcraft, and on behalf of netcraft, on behalf of us, netcraft is getting information, okay? It's interacting with the target and getting information about it, okay? So we are still passive here. So passively we are getting all this information which is publicly available. So we should disable the banner. We should not display the web server information, so that the attacker will not be able to get more information, will not be able to create the profile. Okay, so this is what we can actually do in information gathering. There is one more tool that we can actually use, which is you know very popular. Like, we go through different resources to get information about the target. We use different websites, right? But suppose we want to get all this type of information, but we don't want to go with different tools. So there is a tool that you can actually go with and can find all type of information, right? And that tool is Multigo. So let me access my lab environment here, because here I don't want to use Multigo, and even it will take time also to install. But Multigo is by default installed in Kali Linux, Parrot OS. Okay, but let me just check my credentials. Just a second. I will log into the lab environment. Okay. So this is the lab environment that I'll be using for demonstration. Right, let me just log in with administrator. Okay, taking time here. Okay, available. Right, and these are the servers what I'm using. Okay, let me use this one. Right, so this is Kali, and let me open the console. I'll pop up. So Kali is the most widely used operating system. Parrot is also most widely used operating system. So both options are available. You can use either Kali or you can use Parrot. All these tools for ethical hacking are preloaded in Kali and Parrot SAC, right? So these tools can be used. There is no need to install a tool. These tools are preloaded actually. Let me check if I'm able to access internet. Google.com. So that level of trust we have in Google. If we want to check if we have internet access or not, we just try to ping Google. If we get reply, it means our internet is working. If we do not get reply, we think that our internet is not working. We don't say that Google is not working because of the trust we have in Google and how they are maintaining it. Because there are very less breaches in Google, right? Have you ever seen Google is down? Very in 2020 it happens, but yeah, it's very rare that Google is down even for 1 minute. Okay, that's why we have the trust in Google. So let me use Multigo, which is actually the all-in-one information gathering tool. Right, so there are different versions of Multigo available, like Multigo 1, Excel, Classic. These are paid, right? These are commercial versions, so we need to buy it. There is one which is free, Multigo community, right? So for demonstration, community is good. We can go with this. So let me run Multigo community edition. And I accept here. And it requires registration, right? So we need to register first before using Multigo. So I click on register here option. And it will take you to the Multigo website where you can actually go and register Multigo. So we provide the registration information. So I say like Jeffet Cast and the email. So for email, let me use 10-minute email because I don't want to use my email here. So there are guys who can actually, these guys actually can provide an email address for you. Okay, you can use it for 10 minutes. So I'm looking for Minute Inbox, which is good one. I go with Minute Inbox and I can get an email for 10 minutes where I can receive the activation email so that I can activate my Multigo account. So I copy it and use it for registration. Paste it over here. And the password that I set is capital PA $$W0RD and capital PA $$W0RD, which is the most secure password in terms of yeah. Okay. And palm tree. Is there any? No. So register. Let me save these credentials also. Password do not match. Oh, okay. So let me try. Capital P. It should match. Maybe it's a previous message. Is this a problem? Right. Capital PA $$W0RD and let me prove it again. Traffic light. Taking time. What's wrong? Verification failed. Okay. Let me try again. Or let me just now open this page again. Seems like there is an issue. It shouldn't take this much time. Okay, so Jeffetcast, and let me use a different email. Copy this. Oops. I say John Smith. Right, taxis. All right, so save it and the email sent. So now we should check our inbox. Which one did we use? I think we used this one. Yeah, I received an email. So Multigo C account confirmation. And the account is activated now. I can use Multigo. So I use this email, which I've used for registration, and the password during registration I set capital PA $WRD, and the captcha is MS. Seems like OP. Captcha was incorrect. Okay, let me go back. And the password is capital PA $WRD, and it's ZKZI. So seems good. Now next. Right, so complete updation of transforms, and I go with the default options here. Privacy mode is normal, and here is an option. So open a blank graph and let me play around. Open an example graph. So if you are aware about it, you can just go away and have done it before, or if you are completely new, you can open an example graph. And if you just want to start playing with it, simply go with open a blank graph. Let me play around. So I click on finish with this option, the very first option, and it will open a blank graph for me. This is the privacy change notice here. I acknowledge. Right, so here are the criterias, and based on these criterias you can actually get information about the target. Okay, so if you know the device, date, time, company, organization, if you have idea about the AS, banner, net block, CIDR, if you know DNS name, domain name, IPv4 address, MX source code. Okay, and here the most common criteria is domain. Everybody knows about it, and it's easy to get also. So you can just Google and you will get the domain name easily, right? Remove www and you will get Google domain name easily. So let me drag and drop it here. So it Peterborough by default the vendor of Multigo. I can replace it with the domain for which I want to gather information. For instance, google.com. So right click, and these are the transforms that we can actually perform. So transforms are like scripts. With the help of these transforms, we can get information about the target. So you can run all of them at the same time, or you can run one by one. Suppose I'm looking for the email address, those are associated to google.com domain. So I can just run this transform. Okay, we'll search for the emails, those are associated to this domain, and these are the emails that this tool found for google.com, right? So we have a nat at google.com, and there's Bolger at google.com. So these is the information that it found, and from where it found. So it goes to different sources, and the information is publicly available. Like it goes to the different search engines also. It goes to PGP, goes to public, these whois information, okay, whois database. So from these sources, it try to get the result, like these email addresses. Now, suppose I want to run all the transforms. So you can actually look for the files and documents from the domain owner detail, DNS from the domain, like resource records if you are looking for, right? So one by one, you can actually execute and you can get different types of information, but you can run all of them at the same time. So we'll try to get more and more information about the target. So all this information, like we got subdomains also, like cast.google.com site. Okay, so these are the subdomains for google.com. ns1, this is the name server, and google.asia, google.at, ax. Okay, so all this, we got information about the geolocation, and these are the employees, people information. So if we just look at this, we got information about the phone number, those are associated to Google, right? And the Wayback Machine means the different snapshot also. So Wayback Machine can give you information about the older version of the website. Suppose there was a sensitive information on the website and it's not there. So you can get the older version and can get that information back. Okay, so this one also. And further, you can actually dig deeper. So it's very powerful tool. Like if you have someone here, you can just, let me just move here. Like we have a NAT, for instance. So you want to dig deeper and you want to get more information about this entity. So you right click, and again, you can run the transforms. Like if you want to get more email addresses, those are associated to this person, you can run these transforms. So run it, and then it will give you more information about or email information. So because it's free one, that's why you have less transforms, but in a commercial one, you will get more transforms and you'll be able to get more detail. So all these other emails are also associated to this particular person. The websites and the email, these all are related to that person. So this type of graph you can actually create. The relationship between these objects that you find, those all are related to Google here, right? So it's very powerful actually. It gives you email address, like you see 26 emails, as I see here. There are 26 emails, and there are 41 names actually that it got here. Okay, like google.com 26, the reverse lookup actually. Okay, and these are the emails, right? So this tool is all in one. You can actually get all type of information with the help of this tool, right? Multigo. Okay, so let me discard all this information. Now the next phase, this is information gathering. So you get information through different sources. You can get information about the employees also by just going through social networks like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Or instead of going through different sources, you can actually go through people.com. So people.com is actually having a database of peoples. Okay, so instead of looking for a particular person on LinkedIn, Facebook, or other social networks, you can just go through it, and these guys will look for that particular person on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or all other social networks, right? So just one tool and get information. Okay, but these are not free. They are now commercial one. Previously they were free, but now you cannot search more. Okay, so this is all about information getting. There are other sources also, like email for printing, we have network for printing, we have, so different ways to gather information. But because it's not a full-fledged CEH training class, so that's why I'll jump to the scanning part here. Okay, so suppose we got information about the network range, huh? You can, instead of who is domain, you can who is network, right? Network who is you can actually perform. So if you perform network who is, then you will get information about the range, the IP range that the target is actually using. Now suppose you got the range of the IP address. Suppose here in my network I got information about the range of IP. Huh? Let me check what address I have. So I have if config, and this is my IP address 192.168.19.1, and this is the subnet mask here, right? So 19.1 is my IP, and this is subnet mask. It means it's a C class IP, and if it's a C class IP, it means there are 254 possible computers in this network. So 254 devices are possible. Now out of 254, how many devices are up right now? Okay, or how many IPs are being used right now? Let me just power on rest of the devices also, like my Windows 10 machine. I power on in this network. Okay, and let me configure all of them in the same. Let me power on this Linux machine also, which is vulnerable Linux. And let me make sure that they are in the same network. Okay, they are in the same network. Now let me identify alive systems. So to identify alive systems, we use some tools like Nmap. Okay, so Nmap can be used to identify alive machines. So Kali is the password, and let me zoom it also. Use Nmap. Now with the help of Nmap, we can identify alive systems, open ports, running services, and the vulnerabilities exist on the target, and the common one. So I go with nmap -s and cap. We have to tell actually. So there are different switches in nmap that we can actually use to find the appropriate information. So SP is actually used to identify alive systems in a network. So S and P, and then the network ID we type here 192.168.19.0/24. Add enter. So these are the alive systems, but I don't know. Suppose as an attacker, I don't know what type of devices these IPs are being used for. Okay, so it is being used for Windows machine or the Linux machine or the mobile device. I don't know about that. So I will try to get more information about it. And for instance, what is the IP? Let me check for my Windows Server 2008. It's let me log into this. Right here. Check my IP. It's 19.4. So 19.4 must also be here in the list. You see, I found 90.4 also. But suppose I don't know what type of device it is. Is it a Windows machine? Is it a Linux machine? I don't know. So I want to get more information about it. And to do that, Nmap can help. Okay. So nmap, and I want to identify open ports on this system, first of all, for instance, because without an open port, a hacker cannot get in remotely. So to get in remotely, a hacker needs to actually identify the open doors on the target, and ports are kind of doors that someone can actually use to enter his system. So as n capital T, we use to tell nmap that it needs to identify the open ports. TCP connect scan we will be performing here. So 192.168 and 19.4 is my target. Suppose I want to know about this device, what ports are open on this device. So I press enter, and these are the open ports. These are the doors that I found on the target, right? Open doors. So 135 is open, 139 is open, 445 is open, right? But I just know that these ports are open, these doors are open, and these are the services running. Okay, but suppose I want to know service versions also. It is also important. Not only the services, the service version is also important, because accordingly I will be able to choose the appropriate exploit for that. Okay, so to identify the service versions, I can tell nmap that scan for service versions also. So I'll just say S and capital V. So capital V is for service version scan. So nmap will not only identify the services, will also identify the service versions. So it might take some time because it will try to enumerate the service versions also. So you will see a one more tab this time, which will be having information about the service version that the target is using. And then an attacker can decide like what exploit he should actually use, or what vulnerability might be there. Based on the service version, he can just look for the vulnerabilities in that particular service version. So if I want to see the progress, let me just try pressing enter. So 33% complete, and now it's gonna take just maybe 1 more minute to scan. And we found the versions also, right? You see, so not only the services, the service version also we see here. So Windows RPC, and this is Microsoft Windows Server 2008 R2 or R 2012. Okay, so we don't know exact operating system till now, right? But we came to know that this service belongs to Microsoft Windows 2008 R2 and 2012, but we don't know what operating system the target is running. So we know the service version. Now what OS the target is running. If we want to scan the operating system, so we can do it with the help of nmap. So it's easy for us then to choose the exploit, because suppose we want to choose an exploit that works on this thing Windows Server 2008, and the target is using Server 2012, so our exploit may fail, right? So -O will tell nmap to identify the operating system. So O is to identify OS. So now nmap is saying that the target is a general purpose device and it's running Microsoft Windows 7, 2008 or 8.1, but not the exact detail actually. I need exact information. Otherwise, suppose I use an exploit that works on Windows 7 and the target is running Server 2008, so my exploit might fail. Or maybe the target is running 8.1, then my exploit might fail, right? I just want the exact detail so that the chances of success will be high in that case. So to do it, I can use some scripts available in nmap. So nmap uses some scripts. I type locate, and the scripts extension is .nse, right? And you see all these are scripts. So there are scripts available for VNC brute force. If you want to brute force for who is also, you can actually use, right? And for trace route, we can actually use, for TLS enumeration, we can actually use TFTP enumeration, telnet. So there are scripts available for different purposes. These scripts can enhance the result, the capabilities of Nmap. And I'm looking for the OS discovery. So this is the script that can be used to enhance the result, to get information about the exact operating system, what exact OS the target is using. So I just type nmap and I use the same command, but this time I'm going to use the script also. CRIPT equals to, and paste the script here, right? So not only O switch, I'm going to use this script. So script will give me exact detail what OS the target is using. Okay, so now you see the script result that the target is running Windows Server 2008 R2 data center, the exact information actually, right? Now I know that the target is running this one, so I can look for the exploits available for this version of Windows. But Nmap can help you to identify the vulnerabilities also. So there is a script that can be used to find the bugs, the but most common one. So vuln is the script that you can actually use to find the bugs, the vulnerabilities, right? Although it's not a full-fledged vulnerability scanner, but the most common vulnerabilities can be scanned with the help of Nmap, right? So Nmap will look for the most common vulnerabilities, right? It might take time. While Nmap is running, it doesn't show the output actually. Hmm? So if you want to increase the verbosity level of Nmap, you can press V while Nmap is running. So in runtime, you can press V to increase the verbosity level so that the Nmap will show you more output. Like it will show you the percent or what it is actually doing in background. Like it's saying the active NSC script thread 107. Okay, it's waiting and saying that about 86.87% done, right? 0.4 remaining, right? So it will show you more detail actually. 87.61% done, and will tell you what are the vulnerabilities exist on the target. So 87.6185 will not take more than 1 minute. It's almost done. Okay, 83%, 88. Because it will send some probes to the target OS so that it can ensure that the target is vulnerable. Right, and finally you see the result, the host script result. So uh, it is saying that the target is vulnerable, and this is the vulnerability, right? So CVE ID, it is actually showing you 2017-0143, okay, which is the CVE for WannaCry. Okay, you remember that eternal blue vulnerability. So this exploit, this vulnerability was exploited by WannaCry ransomware. So WannaCry ransomware exploited this vulnerability and it spread itself and infected the systems around the world, right? So this is the problem with the system. This is the vulnerability. Now we know the bug also, we know the vulnerability also. What we can do, we can actually try to exploit it. Okay, so to exploit it, we need the ID, because this is the ID for the vulnerability, and each and every vulnerability gets a unique ID. Similarly, the exploit must also be with the same ID. So we will be using an exploitation tool to exploit this vulnerability, and that exploitation tool is MSF console. So Metasploit framework is the most widely used exploitation tool that we can actually use to exploit a vulnerability. And we are now in Metasploit, right? Here we look for the exploit. So the ID is MS17010. This is the ID for the vulnerability, and we found the exploit also for the same, right? And we have this auxiliary This is also an auxiliary. So auxiliaries can be used to gather information. They cannot be used to exploit the system. So we are going to use this exploit. Okay. So to use an exploit, the command in Metasploit is use command. And then number 2, we go with. Right. So we have loaded the exploit now. Okay. We just need to set the target IP, right? So that we can fire our exploit. So we type set our host to see the target, to set the target IP, which is 19.4. Okay. And that's it. If we don't know what options we need to set, so we can type options command also. It will show you all the options, right? So like this is my R host, R port. Okay. So the options that are required, it will show you. So you can actually set if the option is not set already. Like R host was not set. I just set the R host here. And now we are ready to exploit that machine. So we type exploit to run the exploit. And it's saying the target is vulnerable and trying to exploit that server 2008 system, right? So here we see meter session open. So meter is the payload. So a payload is what? Like exploit is the piece of code that we send to get into the system. But after getting into the system, how we will be controlling that system. Okay, so to control the system, we use the payloads, and meter is actually the most widely used payload, which is actually used to control the system. So we got the meter shell. So meter is having some built-in commands to control the machine. So if you want to see the commands, simply type question mark here, and you will see all these commands that you can actually execute now. So now you are in to that machine, and you can dump the hashes to get the password for the administrator. You can type hashdump command to dump the hashes, right? And we dump the hashes, right? So this is the password hash, not the exact password. But suppose we want to know the password, we can simply try to crack this password. Okay, so we copy the hash. So there are two types of hashes that Windows generates: LM hash and NTLM. So this is LM hash and this one is NTLM. Let me copy NTLM, new technology LAN manager hash. LM is LAN manager, which is older one. NTLM is newer one. So I go to some websites. These websites can actually help you to crack the password. So crackstation.net is one of them, which is I found as having very good database, right? Can try to crack the hash. So we paste our hash over here, and then prove that you are not a robot, and it cracked the password. So the admin password is capital P A $W0RD. So we got the admin password also for that machine, right? What else we can actually do? We can play an audio on the target system, right? Whatever audio we want to play, like we can ask for ransom by just playing the video, or we can record the audio from the integrated mic that the target is having. We can start the webcam chat. We can list the webcams if the target is having webcam, how many webcams the target is having. We can take the snap from the webcam, and we can stream the live video also from the webcam, right? That's why you should always have put a cap on your webcam, because someone may be inside the machine and might be streaming video from your webcam, right? That LED light can be bypassed. That is also possible. Okay. Or suppose now I want to actually see the live screen of the target system. Okay, we can record the keystrokes also. Whatever victim is typing, we'll be able to see that. Or suppose we want to see the live screen of the target system. So we can say we can use screen share command. So it's saying running Firefox the root regular user session is not okay. It's not supported. No problem. What we can do, we can just try to run it manually. Let me copy this URL. So it is streaming the session at this address. And go and paste it over here and try. And yeah, we see the live screen of that machine, right? So whatever we will be doing here, like, let me just minimize this on that server 2008. I minimize the command prompt. Then here also you see it's minimized. And I close this server manager, open my computer. Yeah, and if you go to Kali, you see that computer. So you have the live screen running on the running on your Kali Linux machine of the target machine, whatever is actually doing. Okay, so this is what a bad guy can do if he successfully exploited the vulnerability, right? That's also very bad here. And what else? Like he can actually get the command prompt by typing shell command. So he got the command prompt of the target system where he can actually go and create the users. Huh? Like he can create the username, hack you or whatever. So the user created, or he can add this user to administrators group also. So net user, net local user, local group, sorry. And in which group you want to add? Administrator. Which user? Hack you user. Right, so the user that we created is now the member of administrators group. So if you go here and check if the user exists or not, we can look for that user counts, and we'll see manage other accounts. And here is the user HackU, which is actually an administrator. So we can use this user to make persistent access on the target system, right? So we have total control over this target machine. Okay, that's fine. So now this is how we can start from getting information about our live systems. Then we go and identify open ports, and then we try to identify the running services, and then we find the vulnerability in a specific service, and then we exploit it, right? So this is what these are the phases that hackers are actually using. Same thing, same actually approach an ethical hacker can actually follow, and can try to find the open port. So if there is any unnecessary port open on the target, then he can just suggest that you should actually close these ports, right? So more ports are open on the target means more ways the attacker will get to get into your system. So he will just have more ways to get into your machine. So you should not leave unnecessary ports open. We can suggest them, or if the target is vulnerable, then we can suggest the fix, like you should fix these vulnerabilities. Okay, like all these things we can actually suggest to our client, right, who hired us actually as an ethical hacker. So this is what you'll be learning in this session, right? And but it is actually, you will say that this is a vulnerable system, then you successfully hacked into this machine. It's easy. Server 2008 is not a problem. What about Windows 10 machine, which is the latest release from Windows, right? So if the target is not vulnerable, then how we can actually compromise this, how bad guys can actually compromise these systems? Okay, by using some sort of social engineering attacks also, how they can actually compromise. So let's start Windows 10 machine. So this is Windows 10 system. Let me log in. Right here. So what we can do, suppose this system is not vulnerable, or there is no port open, right? The firewall is enabled. Okay, so it doesn't allow anything from outside, but still we can have access to this machine. So a bad guy, if got an opportunity, can actually access the latest release from Microsoft if the employees are not aware about the threats, if they are vulnerable. So here, when nothing works, when the system is not vulnerable, then social engineering will definitely work, because there is no patch to human stupidity. So we can use some sort of social engineering attacks We can combine both approach, right? This Metasploit and the social link. So to do it, first of all, we need a backdoor. So why we are exploiting the vulnerability? Because we need to inject our payload on the target system, right? But if we generate an executable for that payload and we directly execute that payload on the target system memory, then what will happen? We will get the same result, right? We will get the access to the target. So to do it, what we can do actually, we can first of all create a payload, right? So we type MSF Venom. So MSF Venom is actually used to create the payload. And then what payload? Like we use Windows Meterpreter. So same payload I'm going to use, because I cannot inject it on the target system because system is not vulnerable. Now I'm going to generate the executable for the same and directly will execute on the target system memory. So Windows Meterpreter, and which one? Reverse TCP. So reverse TCP payload are actually useful when the system is behind the firewall. Okay. So if the system is behind the firewall, system will create connection, means the victim will create a reverse connection with us. We are not going to create the connection with the target. So reverse TCP, and because it's reverse TCP, target will try to establish the connection. We must have ID about, the target must have ID about our IP. Then only it will be able to create a reverse connection. So we say L host here equals to 192.168.19.1. Okay. So this will be the L host. And what will be the L port? L port will be 4444, on which I will get the connection. And the format in which I want to generate, because the target is a Windows machine, so I want to generate the executable file. And then where I want to generate, suppose I want to generate it on my desktop. Okay. And the name of the payload will be suppose backdoor. Okay. Backdoor.exec. What's that? Windows Meterpreter reverse TCP is okay. Okay, -p is fine. Windows Meterpreter. L host is 192.168. Okay, L host is fine. L port is also okay. Yeah, it's fine now. Format is that's correct. Then where is the problem? There are valid payloads. Invalid port. Should not be invalid port. Okay, let me check again. It's a 4444 or any port number you can actually use, but okay. L port is 4444. L port equals to 4. Okay, let's use 4443. Not a problem. Okay, so it's now here backdoor.exe. So backdoor we have that we can actually directly execute on the target virtual machine. So we need to copy it on the target virtual machine. To do it, we are going to use a web server, which is Python's web server. So we go and look for sudo khali is the password, and we start simple HTTP server in Python. So Python -m simple HTTP server, right? So the server started in port 8000, so we can go and download this payload, right? So we go and access that machine, which is 192.168.19.1. Oops. 192.168.19.1 colon 8000. Okay, so this is the port number where HTTP is running, and we have the backdoor.exe here, right? Let me just save the target as on my desktop backdoor.exe. So this file I can actually execute and I will get the same result, but the victim is not going to execute this file, right? If I send it to someone, definitely it is suspicious. So I can make it legitimate. Some social link techniques I can actually use. So I can bind it with a legitimate program, right? So go with the some binder. So Easy Binder is the program that I'm going to use, and the Resource Hacker is another program, and the Acrobat Reader is the legitimate program, right? So it's an innocent program. It is actually the backdoor, and this is the binder that I'll be using to hide my backdoor inside this innocent looking program like Acrobat Reader. Okay, but when we'll be binding it, we need an icon to put on the top of the produced file, right? So there are two ways. Either I can get the icon from the internet, or I can extract the icon from this Acrobat Reader. So I go to Resource Hacker, and this is the tool that we'll be using to extract the icon from this Acrobat Reader file, right? Go to Acrobat Reader, and this is the icon file here, as I see this one. Let me extract it. So action, and save icon resource, and let me save it on my desktop. So any name I give, whatever, and we have the icon resource also, right? We have this icon file. So let's start Easy Binder, and let's bind these two files together. So here I just choose the very first file, which is the malicious one, backdoor, or you can choose the legitimate one also. There is no sequence. And then I choose the Acrobat Reader, which is the legitimate file, the innocent one. Then I go to settings, and I select the icon file, which is on my desktop. I go with the all files and choose the icon. And here I set the output file. Okay, so output I want to store on my desktop, and the name of the output would be Acrobat's latest version. Suppose I say latest version. Suppose someone may ask, do you have the latest version of Acrobat? So you can offer it, right, as the ethical hacker, just to test if the employees are vulnerable to social engineering or not. So now it can show you the fake error message also, the tool, but I don't want to make it suspicious. I just want to make it more legitimate here. So I go and bind these two files. And now we have a new file on our desktop, which is Acrobat latest version, right? So this looks innocent, but it has a backdoor hidden inside it, right? It has a backdoor. So let me delete all these files. We don't need it now. We just have Acrobat latest version, right? So as I execute this file, what it will do, it will try to create a reverse connection with the attacker. This Acrobat Reader will try to, this backdoor actually, which is hidden inside it, will try to create a reverse connection because it's a reverse TCP payload. So the attacker must be listening for that connection. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start the listener, right? How? Using the same tool, Metasploit. So Metasploit can be used to start the listener also. So I go and start listener by typing MSF console. And here I type use exploit multi and handler. So I need to run a handler actually and set the same payload that I've used to generate the backdoor. So I use set payload command. Let me just clear the screen. And I used Windows meter preter reverse TCP payload. Okay. And then I set the same L host, which is 192.168.19.1. And I set the same L port also. So set L port that I've used 4443. Okay. Not 4444. And I start the listener to start listening for the connection. So I've started listener. Now the attacker is waiting for the connection, right? Now suppose I send this file to victim and victim executes this file. So victim just double click it and the installer will start. You see Acrobat latest version? I say yes, and the installer will start installing Acrobat. So victim will think that the Acrobat reader is being installed, but actually my payload also got executed in the background and attacker got access. You see, attacker got meter session. You just executed the file here and you'll be able to install this Acrobat reader successfully, right? There will not be any problem. So the victim doesn't know that in background the payload also got executed, right? So the attacker got access to the victim computer. Now if you see sysinfo, you will see it is Windows 10 machine, blah, blah, okay? And you know power of meterpreter. You can do a lot of things, hash dump, screen share, all these commands you can actually execute on the target by just using. Yeah, so the full, this thing, patch systems, up-to-date systems, you can actually compromise. Even if you now cancel the installation, not a problem, right? Because my this thing payload got executed on the system, right? I can try hash dump now to dump the hash, but I don't have privilege. Huh? It says privilege is the problem. Means I couldn't get the system level privilege. So I type get system to get system level privileges and got system level privilege. I type hash dump now. Oh, still I don't have. Okay. So what I can do actually, let me check get UID. So I'm actually accessing it under authority and system privileges. Okay, anyway, let me do one thing. I go through the PS, means processes. And the beauty of meterpreter is you can migrate your access to any other process, right? So you see these processes. I'm looking for a process which is running under system level privileges. So like this SVC host, this SVC host process is running under system level privilege. So I can migrate my access to this process. So till this process is running, I will have access to the system, and I will get system level privileges also, okay, because it is running under system user. Okay, so 3804 is the process ID for this. So let me migrate my access to 3804. Migrate
Sunder.
3804. Yeah.
We're actually starting to run a little short on time.
Yeah.
If you are able to wrap up in about the next 3 minutes so we can get to our question answer session before we wrap up our session today, that would be wonderful.
Okay, sure. We'll do that. Thank you. So here we got access and we dump the hash also. We got system level access. Okay, so this is how we actually compromise the Windows systems also. Now let me talk about other threats also. So these are the actually maintaining access. So for maintaining access, what a bad guy can do you can just use run persistent command. So there is an option to run persistent also. Run persistence, okay? So yeah. So run persistence will install a backdoor on the target system. So even if the target restart the machine or just kill this software, still we will have access to the system, right? And then we can cover the track by just running clear EV. So clear EV will wipe all the records from the event viewer, and now there is no track that we did something on the system. It will be fine. If you go to event viewer, you will see all the events got deleted actually, right? So this is about system hacking. Now types of password attacks. So for password attacks, like we can actually use non-electronic attacks like shoulder surfing. If someone is typing his password, we can just see what he's typing, right? Or from a long distance also, like we can enable our mobile phone camera and then can just record what he's typing. Using dumpster diving techniques, okay, we can just go through the garbage, can get information about the password, maybe the date of birth someone use, the spouse name, or the his first name, like employee ID also someone may use, or maybe someone write his password on a paper and put it in dustbin later, and then we can get the paper back to get the password. Active online, in which we try to actually get the password, but we are actively interacting with the target, and the target must be online. Like we try to crack Gmail password, or Facebook password, or any other websites, right? So we send the request, we type the password. A tool will do that actually. It will use a dictionary or will generate the possible combinations and will try to send it to the target. Target will send wrong password. Then we will try the next password from the dictionary and we'll say wrong password, and we'll keep doing it till we find the right password. So our dictionary may have hundreds of thousands of words and we try all these passwords, right? So the target must be online and we are directly interacting with the target, right? So we can perform dictionary, brute force, or rule-based attacks, right? In dictionary, attacker uses a dictionary. In brute force, we try all possible combinations, but it might take a long time, right? How much time? You can just go and calculate here. So GRC haystack, and here is the password calculator, brute force calculator. You can type your password and can check how much time it will take to crack, right? So 6.9 year online attack, 2 seconds offline, and a massive cracking will take 2 seconds. So you can check the strength, you can try to increase the strength and can check how much time it will take to crack. Okay, passive online, in which we perform man in the middle, right? So suppose a user is typing his password and trying to log into Gmail, and we are man in the middle, we are sniffing the network. So we can get the password if Gmail is not sending it in encrypted format. Although Gmail is encrypted, you cannot do that, it's not vulnerable. But if the website is using plain text protocols, then we can do that. Okay, wire sniffing or man in the middle, we can actually perform. Offline, when we got the password hash, like here we dump the hashes and then we crack that password using we just try to crack these hashes to get the password. Okay, so it's offline. If the target is not online, not a problem, we can still crack the password. Okay, rainbow table, because password hash cracking is comparing method. We compare the result actually, because it's not possible to reverse the hash. So we simply calculate the hash for a password and we'll compare it with the actual hash till we find the match. So it takes time, like the tool has to calculate the hash and then it has to compare it with the actual hash. So what we do, we can actually use a dictionary in which we can have pre-computed hashes. So tool just need to compare it, no need to calculate the hash during the password cracking process. So it dramatically increase the speed of the cracking process and decrease the time to crack the password, because time is the factor otherwise. And DNA attack, in which we distribute our attack on multiple systems, right? So thousands of machines will be acting as a single unit and will be cracking the same password. Malware based attacks, we can actually use like Trojans, backdoor, like I've just demonstrated the backdoor. Okay, you can use the backdoor to get into ransomwares are also there, right? So the bad guys, the hackers, can actually use malwares to compromise our systems. They can use malware based attacks, and you see ransomware attacks grew, and outstanding actually, 485% in 2020 when compared to 2019. So it's a very high number here. Now, steganography is an art of hiding, information inside an image. Like we can hide a message inside an image file. We can hide a message inside an audio file, inside a video file. So suppose someone is trying to perform data exfiltration, an insider attack, hacker actually, an insider threat like a disgruntled employee or a contractor is trying to steal sensitive information from the company and trying to send it to the competitor or outside from the company. So just to avoid detection, he can hide this information, like maybe credit card detail inside a picture, inside an audio file, and can send it to the competitor, right? And can exfil the data so that no one will be able to know that he's actually sending sensitive information. They will see that he's just sending the pictures, right? But it's actually not good for the company. That's why the ethical hackers, they will try to see if there are some steganography being used inside the network. Okay, we'll try to scan the files for steganography, right? Social engineering. So we talked about these backdoor attack that we can actually bind a malicious file with the legitimate file, and then we can send it to someone. Other attacks, like we can actually use a set tool, a social engineering toolkit, that we can create a fake website using this set tool, right? So this tool is also available where we can actually go and create a fake website so that the victim will just try to use this. Let me just give a demo very quickly. Right here. So social link attack, number 2, website attack vector, number 3, credential harvesting method. And here is the way you can actually clone an existing website, like the Facebook, Twitter, or any other website. If you want to clone, oh come on, what happened? I typed here number. Okay, let me just cancel this. So website attack vector number 2, and number 3, credential harvest method. And here I go with site cloner. So I want to clone a live website. So here I'll be hosting 19.1 is my IP. And what website? Suppose facebook.com, right? www. Sorry. So this tool will clone the Facebook login page and will host it over here. So if a victim try to access Facebook, so he will just type your IP. You can use DNS poisoning technique also to redirect the victim to your IP instead of the real Facebook IP. So the bad guys can do that. If DNS poisoning is working, if you don't have enough prevention, then you see the page looks just like facebook.com login page, but it is actually not the real Facebook page. It is the fake phishing page which was created by the attacker and hosted on this system. Now I type my credentials here, like my FB username, and I type my password here, my FB password, and yep. Now it will, you see, after grabbing your credentials, it will redirect you to the actual facebook.com. So victim may think maybe I mistyped my password, but he will just type it again and will be able to log in, because this time the page is from Facebook, but the attacker got the password here, like here. Yeah. So the username, your email was my FB username, and you type in password field, you type my FB password, right? So this is how someone can convince you to click on this link and can just access this fake website, right? And all these types of application-based attack, like SQL injection. So for SQL injection, someone can actually, try to find these pages using admin login.asp and can try to perform SQL. Okay, injection here in URL admin login.asp, and these are the pages here, right? So you have to hide these login pages from the public view, otherwise they may perform some SQL injection on these website. Like this one is I know this guy who is actually hosting this website. I know them, right, where I can actually test, right? I know these guys, these are not the real one, but yeah, this is for the demo. For demo is good, right? So here, if suppose an attacker wants to log in to this page without username password, he can actually use SQL injection technique, right? So like he can just type blah or quote 1 equals to quote 1. This is the SQL statement that he can actually type in username field and the password field, and can have access to the admin panel. You see, he's now logged into the admin panel without username and password. So this is how SQL injection can actually give you complete access, and it's really easy to perform also, right? So why? Because the application is not secure. Okay, so ethical hacker can do what? Can try to find these flows and can just report these flows to the client who hired him, right? And can help them to get secured, right? So SQL acts as cross-site scripting, in which the attacker can execute a malicious script on the target system, right? So to steal the session cookies maybe, or to execute a code on the target system, right? So it is actually a client attack. Parameter tampering, in which like you can, like a malicious guy can change the price of the website, like Amazon or other online shopping websites. So if they are vulnerable, although they are not vulnerable actually, but if there are some websites those are not that much secure, so someone can just modify the price and can buy the stuffs in lower price, right? So that's parameter tampering. Directory traversal, in which attacker can go through the directories. So if the web application is vulnerable, attacker can go through these directories and can actually try to get sensitive information from the web server, right? Like can see the files available on C drive, can see the files available on D drive, like that. CSRF is similar to cross-site scripting here, okay, but it's a targeted attack. Like it can target a specific mail service like Gmail, or a specific bank, okay? So it is actually targeted similar to this thing, accesses. Application doors, in which uh, you know a bad guy can actually perform a denial of service on the target system. Like a web server can handle just 1000 requests, so attacker can send 1000 requests on the web server, and the legitimate users will not be able to access the website. Why? Because web server is already having 1000 requests, those are sent by attacker, so it can make the service unavailable for the legitimate users. Session hijacking, you can get into the live session, like without the username and password. So suppose two machines are having active session, like I'm logged into my Gmail account, okay? Now someone can hijack my Gmail session and can have access to my mail account without username, password, without two-factor authentication. I could demonstrate it, but due to lack of time, I've not able to give a demonstration on this, right? Buffer overflow, is also an application attack, in which the application may not handle unexpected inputs. Like suppose you develop an application and that application accept only alphabets and the numbers as the username, but what if a user is actually providing special characters as an input to an application, right? How the application will handle that? Or maybe the username field, you are expecting that may have just 10 characters long username, but what if someone is providing 100 characters as a username? So application might not handle it. It might get crashed. So we can take advantage of that crash and we can execute our payload also, right? Like we did with MS-17. So MS-17 is a buffer overflow attack on the target. Code injection, in which we can execute some commands, okay, on the target. Like there are some websites, those are providing free ping, free ping. So where you can actually go and can just perform pings. Okay, you can ping a website, nice that. free ping online. Should be online, sorry. So this one, right? So you can go and ping a website, right? Now, if you execute the ping command on this target server, you can execute other commands also, like you can execute ls command to see the files on the target server if it is vulnerable. You can execute, this thing, cat command to see the users there, etc, and the passwd file you can see. Okay, so you can execute, or you can execute your php backdoor, right? So that's also possible. Okay, so these are the code injection techniques here. Okay, right. So this is all about uh, this certified ethical hacker, and this is what you are going to learn, guys. So there are a lot of things like here. Due to lack of time, I couldn't demonstrate a lot of things like how to hijack the Gmail session without username, password, without mobile number. Like if you had two-factor authentication, still you can get in. Okay, or CSRF, how we can execute the code remotely, like to steal the session cookies. Okay, and code injection also, how to upload the PHP background target system. So all these techniques you learn so that you can defend your organization, right? You can test your organization's environment against these type of vulnerabilities. Yeah, Leela. Hello. Can you hear
Sorry,
me,
I
Leela?
was trying to unmute myself, and I ended
Sorry.
up trying to
Okay.
unmute somebody else.
Okay.
Thank you so
No
much.
problem.
We are going to go ahead and jump into well, while you guys are getting your question answers into the box right now, into the questions panel, we're going to hear from Tanmay. And Tanmay is our product manager, and he's going to introduce some of our promotions and webinar related courses. Let me pass the presentation rights over to you. You should be able to share your screen now.
Yes, thank you so much. This was fascinating. I could only imagine what we could learn given the time. But this doesn't end here. The ethical hacking training is one of the most sought after programs in the cybersecurity space. So if you navigate yourself to our website www.netcomlearning.com, you could see the promotion section, and what you have here is the free ethical hacking training. So if you have a team of 10 or more than 10, be it your colleagues, your red teams, your peers, your study group, so you can drop us your detail, and we will curate a ethical hacking session, a free ethical hacking session for you, and our learning consultant is going to get in touch with you. Said, you can always type, if you are interested in our certified ethical hacking program, you can type CEH and in our search box, and what you find here is, okay, so you have our CEH program right here. This is a virtual instructor led uh, training. So what you have here is our official courseware from EC Council, access to the lab, and also an exam voucher. You can scroll down and find the schedule that fits you. Uh, and also in NetCom Learning, we believe in lifelong learning. So again, if you go to promotions page, you would find our offering, which is called the NetCom Unlimited, and it's a very fascinating offering. If you look at our pricing, if you are a group of more than 10, you get it for $2,499, and less than 10, you get it for $2,099. And what you get with this is a year's access to a number of courses. You scroll down, you find EC Council's ethical hacking, you find Certified Network Defender, which is also a very popular network security offering from EC Council. And the other ones like SOC analyst, CSA, ECSS, the ECIH, which is the incident handling program, and that is not the end of it. You also get learning solutions from other vendors as well. And lastly, you can always go to our resources section. You navigate to our upcoming webinars. So I was mentioning about network security. Uh, so ethical hacking is offense. So offense is always theory without defense, right? So you scroll down here, you're also going to find the first looks of CND, which happens on November 4th. So you can register for this and also for our exciting other webinars as well. So I really exciting things happening here in NetCom Learning. I hope I'll will be seeing a lot more than this in the upcoming events. So that's all from me. Thank you, Leela.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to go ahead and jump into these questions right away. Let's see. Our first question, showing my screen. Let's see. They're asking him, I'm not sure, Tanmay, do we have any e-certificates for today's webinar?
We do not have any certificate for attendance.
Okay. And the session is being recorded. We had some questions about that. That will be sent to you the next 24 hours via email. So, sorry, I'm trying to, some of the questions are repeats, so I'm just trying to make sure I'm asking ones that are not. They were wondering if you can recommend to us either a tool or a process to verify an attachment before we download it. Sunder,
No.
did you
Yeah,
you hear
okay.
that?
Is this
Okay.
from me? Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, sorry. Yeah, okay. So you are looking for a tool that we can actually use to make sure that the attachment or the file that we have or the link we have is actually clean or not. So there is a website you can actually go through. The website is virustotal.com, where you go and can scan the link, scan the attachment. Also, you can upload a file. If it is suspicious, then you can make sure if it is clean or vulnerable. Because if you scan these files or the links with an antivirus, none of the antivirus is best actually, right? Because some antivirus might be effective for ransomware, some antivirus might be effective for worms, some antivirus might be effective for viruses, but none of the antivirus is best antivirus. This VirusTotal websites, they have almost more than 60 antivirus engines there. So they will scan that file using all these 65 engines, right? And then you can make decision. Like maybe some of them are not able to find it or not able to detect it as a virus, but if most of them are detecting as a virus or a malicious file, then it will definitely help.
Wonderful. Can you spell that out so I can type it into the chat box and everyone can have?
It's VirusTotal. Let me VIRUS total.
VIRUS. Oh, VirusTotal.com.
Yeah, VirusTotal.com.
Total.com. Okay, I am popping that into the chat box. So you guys should all be able to see that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Our next question is, will the CEH v11 cover the based on Windows 10 1903 or newer and Server 2019?
Yeah, definitely. So it's actually because here, if you want to learn, then you need to actually learn on a vulnerable machine. So as I demonstrated, my Windows 10 machine was fully patched, right? There was no vulnerability in that Windows machine. No remote code execution was possible, but still I was able to get in. So in Certified Ethical Hacker, you'll be using Server 2019, Server 2016, Windows 10, and Server 2012 machines for demonstration. Okay, few machines like maybe some older Linux machines will be using like Metasploit we have, and because it's necessary also. If you have a fully patched operating system, then what you will learn? You will not learn anything. You must have some vulnerabilities on these systems. Then only you can learn how to exploit these vulnerabilities, right? So that you can do the same for your clients, okay, and can report them. Okay, so yeah, we have the latest operating systems, but they are vulnerable. They are not fully patched actually. Some of them are fully patched, but these type of attacks can be used to hack into a fully patched system. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so due to time, we're only going to take about 1 or 2 more questions. So if you guys do have a question, now is the time to get that in. Our next question is, how is CEH different from other programs in the market?
CEH is actually more practical approach. Like other programs, if you talk about like Security Plus and all other entry-level certifications that we have in market, they are not focused on practical approach. So if you want to get your hands dirty, if you want to get the practical knowledge, then CEH is the best program in market. You learn how to use different tools that the ethical hackers, penetration testers are actually using to assess the environment security postures. So that's why it's not just theoretical knowledge. You get practical knowledge actually. That's why it's different from other programs in market at this level actually. It is also entry level, and the other programs at entry level, they are a bit theoretical programs, not practical one. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are going to go ahead and wrap up. You are just a wealth of knowledge, and I know that we could keep going probably all day with all the information you've got. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up. Right now, we're going to launch a poll to see how many people might be interested in the upcoming trainings and webinars that we have available. In addition to today's webinar, we have a lot of informative webinars that are coming up. So you can go to www.netcomlearning.com/webinars/ to register for any of those. We want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Sunder, for joining us. If anyone does come up with any additional questions, you can feel free to send them to us at webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time, and we will get back to you. And we hope you all found today's webinar to be very informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us very soon. Also, feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and upcoming courses. Once again, thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.